Hi, welcome back to First in Fiction, your first stop for learning to write fantastic fiction. I'm Molly Jo Reilly, producer and facilitator of the podcast. I will be your MC for the evening, and our first guest or host tonight is Aaron. Aaron, welcome to the show.
It's been so long. It's been a while. We are not recording this on the same night or anything. So yeah, it's good to be back after such a long break.
It seems like it's been absolutely forever since we last checked in with you and Tessa.
Indeed.
And our new co-host is Tessa Emily Hall. Tessa, go ahead and introduce
Hello.
yourself again. Hello.
Hi, yes. So I write young adult fiction, Purple Moon, Unwritten Melody, Coffee Shop Devos is a nonfiction devotional, and Fallen Leaves, and I work in publishing as well.
Fantastic. Forgot to mention that as of the time that this has gone live, Aaron's newest Hand of Adonai book has been released. So go to all of his social media sites and Amazon and check it out. Very excited to be promoting that. That is the third installment of Hand of Adonai. Some questions are finally being answered, and I have not read it yet, so I don't know if he's left us with a few more questions or not, but knowing Aaron, he probably has. So looking forward to getting my hands on that book. Okay. So just the housekeeping here, make sure you follow us on YouTube and all of our social media sites. Click the thumbs up icons. That's the equivalent of giving us a good review on Amazon and Goodreads. It'll help us grow. Please share the link with your friends. Thanks. And also feel free to look back through our archive and give our older videos a thumbs up too. You can find that on YouTube or at aarongansky.com. How are we doing, guys?
It's like you've practiced it.
Well, maybe a little bit. I was, if you see our most recent episode where we just came back from hiatus, I was on hiatus for close to a year. It didn't seem that long, but it is quite a while that I had called Aaron and said, hey, I need to take a break for a while. He said, sure, take as long as you need. How long are we talking about? And I said, well, at least a few months. And I think I might have caused him to have a small stroke or something. So we are all back. We are all doing well. So on to tonight's topic, which is creating the external plot journey of your character by first discovering his or her inner journey. So my question right off the bat is, how is beginning with an internal journey especially helpful for character-driven novelists? And I know we kind of touched on this at the end of the last podcast, but just as a refresher, Aaron, why don't you define for our viewers, what is a character-driven novel?
Yeah, a character-driven novel is going to be one that really focuses on the internal struggles of the character, particularly a character arc. It has to do not necessarily with external forces like trying to save the world or trying to, overcome evil or whatever the case may be, but it's sometimes just coming to grips with who they are as a person, rationalizing their faith, finding faith, losing faith, falling in love, losing love. It's really, I think of it as a novel that if you have a really good character, you can watch them painting a wall and it's going to be fascinating. And as opposed to like I think of like the plot-driven novels is more like the summer blockbuster films where the concept is really, really high and it's really interesting, but the characters maybe don't seem to be as deep or as well thought out, or they feel kind of stock and familiar, kind of in the bad way, familiar, like they're just not well thought out.
Yeah, and I would like to add that with character-driven books, the tension is developed because of the internal journey that the character takes. So a lot of the stakes of the story are based on that, on their goals and their fears and their desires. Whereas in plot-driven books, a lot of the tension is mainly based on the events that happen to the characters and the action and that sort of thing. And as I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm very much a character-driven novelist myself. So that means that I like to develop the character first, and it's through that development of creating their internal journey that I'm able to then create sort of an external journey for the character that will steer the entire course of the story.
And that's kind of what we're going to take a look at today, which I find very interesting. I think if we can maybe try and sum it up, I feel like I have a wise thing to say. I could be very wrong, but
I'll let you know.
a character, a plot-driven novel is going to be one in which something happens to our character. Whereas a character-driven novel is going to be about something that happens in our character. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That is a great soundbite. That is going on Twitter as soon as we wrap up this podcast. Nicely done there, Chief.
Double fist pump right there.
Boom, boom. Okay, so once we discover who they are internally, you say we can then map out the external journey.
Yes.
Can you give us some examples of characters that have been character driven that have worked their way through, the novel?
Well, of course, as I've been saying, I am a character-driven novelist, so I always begin through mapping out the internal journey, and that's how the plot is developed. And really, in real life, that's how, that's how we make decisions. Our external decisions are a result of our inner life. And so if we can figure out our character's inner life, then it's going to be that much easier to brainstorm some of the plot events. So this is especially helpful for those of you who are character first novelists. And for one example is in the Hunger Games, and I absolutely love the Hunger Games, being a YA author, and I love dystopian fiction in general. But so Katniss, we find that she volunteers for the games, like once her sister is selected for the reaping. Katniss ends up volunteering to take her place. And this is a reflection of her inner need, which is to protect her sister. And that inner need was already there. It was just expressed through the action that she took. And so the internal struggles and the internal desires and fears and the flaws and the lies that our character believes about themselves, they're all going to be manifested through the external choices and actions of the story. And that's what's going to push the story further and develop our plot. And that will also, once we discover their internal journey, that's what's going to serve as motivation for the story, as well as create the story stakes and the story tension. And I guess I could give an example of my own book as well, Unwritten Melody, as I mentioned in the previous episode. So for Cassie is the main character, and she longs for freedom, and that's her inner need. And then she decides that's pushes the story further because of that, she decides to take action against her grandmother's strict rules so that she can become more of an average teenager. And that's her outer goal. So the inner goal and the outer goal, of course, correspond with each other. And then her fear is also going to come into play during the crisis of the plot. It's going to help me to shape that black moment event and also the flaw. And a lot of this is actually material that I first discovered, and then I learned also through my book therapy. They really helped me to understand how I can create a plot journey for my character by first understanding who my character is at the core and by mapping out that internal journey.
Now, side note from this, but do you map it out? When you say map it out, is that something like an outline that you do before you write, or is it mapping it out as in if you're a pantser or, if you write an organic writer, it kind of happens while you're writing it out and then you see what's happening?
Yeah, I think it can vary from person to person. It just depends on the person's process. But personally for me, I used to be more of a pantser, but now I guess I'm a little bit of both, because it really helps me to understand, because as a character-driven novelist, if I start writing, then I need to have somewhere that I'm going with my book. Otherwise, who knows where I'll end up. I need to have something happening, and I need to have a goal that the character is chasing. And I can still have all that and still pants, my way through the book, but it helps me to have sort of a roadmap that can guide me. And it's not exactly an outline, I guess. It's more of I know what's going to happen near the end, near the crisis, and I know how their internal struggles and all of that are going to come into play, and it's going to be manifested through the plot events. So I know like the main plot points, and also the external plot points, but then also the internal plot points, and then I'll just write from there. Sometimes I'll, create a synopsis first and then write my book based on the synopsis, but then sometimes, the story changes, the plot changes as I actually write the story.
Nice.
So it's really nice when these two mirror each other. And knowing your character's backstory, like we talked about last time, knowing their inner struggles, understanding that those are going to come back and play a part, can be very powerful. If there's some sort of external force that, if your character is struggling with self-doubt, if there should be some sort of external force that is going to force them to either be confident in their actions or to, shrink away in fear, or whatever the case may be. There is some sort of external force acting on your character, which is furthering their inner journey, right? And then as your character's inner journey, as they overcome obstacles and become a little more confident, let's say, then the external pressures become greater. And so when they kind of mirror each other, or they parallel each other, that's what makes for a very satisfying type of a read.
Yeah, deep.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's what makes for a deep kind of read. And readers aren't only entertained by the plot events, but they also can gather this theme based on the character arc, the character journey that the character goes through. And those are the kind of stories that really stick with you, not just entertaining, but also, they have sort of a heart behind it, a message behind it. Yeah.
I want to throw out a few examples if I can. I always feel weird throwing out examples of my own books because it feels like shameless self-promotion. But so in the interest of not doing that right now and doing it later, I will first begin with The Road, in which the father's predominant internal struggle is trusting. He doesn't trust anyone except for himself and his son. And for good reason, by the way, for very good reason. But he's torn in the sense that he wants to teach his son what is right and what is good. And therefore, he wants to teach his son about caring for other people, about cooperation, about, human beings taking care of one another. But the reality is, in this post-apocalyptic world, that it's all sorts of chaos and disarray. This is his internal struggle. The external struggle is you have characters who are trying to rob them. You have characters who are trying to, kill them and eat them. You have these types of external struggles, which makes the father have to confront what he truly believes. He keeps insisting that they're the good guys, but they are increasingly put in positions where they have to do things that are morally ambiguous and gray. And the father has to be able to rationalize that. He has to be able to rationalize it to his son, and he struggles to do that. And so his interior journey, as well as the child's interior journey of kind of losing this faith or this innocence, kind of this coming of age type story, is really thrust upon them because of the external nature of the conflict, this post-apocalyptic world. In Grapes of Wrath, we see Casey, the minister who is renounced his faith for a variety of reasons. That's an internal struggle. He has to figure out what he truly believes and why he believes it. The external struggle is the Dust Bowl. They lose all their land. They're forced off their land. They have to move to California, where they are treated very, very poorly. And it puts that external pressure, forces him to kind of reevaluate his own faith and his own morals. In Harrison Sawyer, which I would have said at the very beginning when I first started writing, it was very much a plot-driven novel. What happens when somebody has to finish the autobiography of their son? I just thought that was somewhat interesting to me. So that was kind of a concept, right? That was a plot. That was a concept. That wasn't a character. What really unlocked that book and made it one of my favorite novels that I've written is the father's journey to rediscover his son. what makes it interesting is he's not asked to finish the autobiography of his son. He's asked to finish the autobiography of his estranged son, who he hasn't talked to in 15 years. And now this becomes an opportunity for him to, oh, look at that.
I have the book.
So for him,
it's on my I need to read it shelf.
It's been there for 6 years. No, I'm just kidding. It becomes his
it's a neat trick because it only came out 3 years ago.
It becomes his opportunity to reconnect with his son, and that's his internal journey. At the same time that there's an external journey, there's some other outside pressure that's forcing him to figure this mystery out, because his life may actually be in danger as well. And so that's kind of the my attempt there. You can tell me if it's successful or not, of trying to mirror or parallel external struggles with that internal struggle.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just telling him, I'll let him know. I'll let him know if he succeeded or not.
Yeah, the internal goal is what gives the characters the motivation for going on an external journey. And so sometimes whenever I'm teaching on this in classes, I like to say that the inciting incident is like an invitation for the character to go on a journey of reaching their inner need, but it's just manifested in external form. And the reason why this is so helpful for me personally, again, being a character-driven novelist, I would always have struggles trying to create some sort of a plot. Like whenever I wrote my first book, Purple Moon, I pantsed my way through it. Sort of. I kind of bounced around from different scene to scene. But anyway, so I wrote it, and then I had some best-selling author look over it. And she told me that that it lacked a plot and my character needed a goal. And I didn't really understand what she was referring to at first. I didn't realize that every story, a character needs a goal, and that what pushes the story further. And so I ended up giving her a goal, which actually did mirror her inner need. And so that's what helped me then to even brainstorm the plot events of the book. And so that's what I use all the time now when I'm brainstorming my stories, is I will first just look inwardly, and then I will try to find something that can be an external reflection of their inner desires and fears and flaws and all of that. And that's what gives me the ideas of my plot now. And it's so much simpler than just trying to think of random events for my plot, because that was really hard.
That sounds, I don't want to say too difficult, because obviously you succeeded, but it sounds like a challenge. Like that was a challenge.
I was surprised to find that it's not that hard, because once I do understand my character, then I am able to mirror everything inside of them in a way that, so for instance, if they have a certain inner need, then I can just create some sort of external goal to be paired with that. And then her motivation is going to stem from her motivation to go on this journey toward attaining this goal is going to stem from that inner need. And so it really helps me to create the plot arc, but also the character arc.
Very cool. Now, is there an equal balance, would either of you say, is there an equal balance with the inner and external journeys on the page? Like, do you have to give equal weight as you're writing out the story?
Oh, I would say there's always a balance that you have to achieve. Now, that balance is not necessarily 50-50. I don't know, I'm trying to think of a way to kind of some sort of metaphor or analogy here, but if you think of it, if the character plot, if the character's internal journey is more important to the novel than the external, then you're going to spend a little more time on that. That doesn't mean that the external journey is any less significant or important. They work well together. They play off each other. Where one is stronger, one may be weaker. Where one is stronger, the other one may be weaker.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what you're trying to achieve. It's not necessarily a 50-50. It's more of a, 70-30, 80-20, 60-40, whatever works for that particular project.
Yeah. One is going to be more subtle than the other, but they should still be woven together throughout the course of the story. I think it also just depends on whether it is a plot-driven book or a character-driven book, and also the type of genre too.
And Tessa, you just said something that was sort of a follow-up. They do both have to be in there. Like Erin, you're saying they don't have to be 50-50, but they do both have to be in there, character and plot, or character and action. You can't have one without the other. Otherwise, it's not a compelling story to read.
Right. And sometimes you might have, like if you watch a movie, it might be hard to nail down what that internal journey was. And sometimes you might have to dig a little deeper. Well, same with the books that you write, it might be hard to nail down even the plot arc of the entire book, like it was for my first book, Purple Moon. But if you really dig deep, then you can find it. It's just one of those threads. It might be a little more subtle than the other one.
Yeah, well said. I think it also depends on the reader and the genre that you're going for. Mm-hmm. I tend to find, at the risk of sounding somewhat sexist, it seems that most female readers are okay with long passages of interior monologue, kind of that internal journey, thinking, reflecting, those types of things. Whereas male readers tend to like action a little. They favor action scenes a little bit more. Long passages of interior monologue, they kind of start thinking, blow something up. I remember reading. Well, I mean, I remember reading The Hunger Games, and I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. Yeah, she's in a bad place. She's going to volunteer for her sister. She's working out. She's okay, and she's crafty. I'm getting this, and then it was like, Peter, Gail, which one do I love? And I was like, just shoot someone with an arrow, please, because it was. To me, there were times where to me, there were times where she spent too long on it. I was okay up front with, Katniss's love for her sister, her sacrifice for her sister. But it was, for whatever reason, the romance part for me, it didn't resonate as much. Now, I've read other, romance type stories that were a little more compelling. But
I know you completely love the Twilight series.
That's about all the time we have for today. Look at that. I'm trying to be better about not throwing particular books under the bus. I'm not good at that.
Why change now?
It's just petty jealousy because she sold billions of copies and I haven't. So petty jealousy.
Okay.
And I'm better than her. So humbly speaking.
Sure, whatever you say. So I actually think that is all the time we have. That's it for the show notes. Do either of you have anything that you would like to add regarding internal and external journeys? Erin, we'll start with you.
I'm glad, Tessa, this was a suggestion of yours. This topic was a suggestion of yours. And when I first approached you about being on the show and asking for some topic ideas, these were some of the ones that you threw out. And I was like, these are fantastic. One of the things that I appreciate having you on the show is your new perspective, and I felt that Pops and I had kind of retread the same water. I've been doing this for I don't even know how many years now, and I feel like a broken record because I say it in my creative writing class and I say it on these casts. And when you suggested this, I was like, oh, this is perfect because I don't talk about this, but I should. And so really great insight, Tessa. Thank you for sharing that with us and bringing that to us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'll just challenge every listener who's listening who is more of a character-driven novelist just to give this a try. If you've been having struggles, creating some sort of plot arc, then give this a try. Start with the internal journey of your character and see if you can create some new plot events for your book.
Sounds good. All right. So as usual, you can find us at ErinGansky.com, TessaEmilyHall.com, and MollyJoReilly.com. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter at First in Fiction Podcast. And remember to submit your questions for Ask the Author. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Until next time. See, I forgot to sign off. It's been so long. I forgot to sign off on the last one. So
I think the sign off is didn't we used to have until then? Good writing.
Until next time, good writing. So, but yeah, it's close enough. So
You can edit.
yeah.
Bye. Just say goodnight, Charlie.
Bye, guys.